Welcome to Biztech's C-Suite Conversation Show. Australia is the 13th largest e-commerce market in the world, with revenues of over 40 billion in 2021. Now, Fintech Australia estimates that the fintech industry is now worth 4 billion in Australia. And in the global fintech rankings in 2021, Australia now ranks 6th in the world and 2nd in the Asia Pacific region. Now, a leading fintech player in Australia is PIN Payments. Now, PIN Payments is an online payment platform that's designed for small businesses. Now, to tell us more about PIN Payments and the Australian payments and fintech industry landscape, we have Chris Dahl. He's the CEO of PIN Payments. Now, Chris, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Brian. Good to be here.
Now, Chris, for a start, give us an overview of PIN Payments and its journey so far.
Sure. So PIN Payments, we've been around for about 10 years now, and we launched to solve a problem for small businesses in the Australian market, in that it was very difficult for them to access online payments. So 10 years ago, people were moving online, they wanted to launch their online stores, and it was very difficult for a small business to get access to that. A lot of the time, the banks would decline their application for an online merchant account. And so we wanted to solve that problem for small business in Australia. And we did that by building an all-in-one online payment platform whereby we owned the whole process and the whole journey for that small business. And it meant they could then sign up and get started taking payments online in 1 to 2 days versus having to wait 3 to 4 weeks to hear back from the bank to approve that account. That's how we got started 10 years ago, and the problem that we're solving.
And so then I could see how that would have been of tremendous value, because literally what we take for granted today was a big problem that you solved at that time. Walk us through then your evolution on how you grew the business until you were acquired by Checkout.com in 2020.
Sure. So, in the early days, it was about solving that problem. The way we got access to small merchants looking to take payments online was either directly, them searching out for a solution like ours, or also through a developer channel. So, developers that are integrating payments into, more complex custom applications or websites, they found us there as well. So early on, we're solving that very specific problem. But what's changed over the past 10 years is that it's no longer just about, having payments on an online store. Payments are becoming embedded in all sort of industries of software. And if you look at the most recent sort of few years with COVID, it's forcing certain verticals and software providers in those verticals to be thinking about building online payments into those solutions. So what's really happened now is like we're getting all of this access to these platforms that need to build payments into their platforms and make that available. So we now have a solution that allows them to do that. And that was one of the areas that was applicable to Checkout, in that we both sort of service those platforms that need to build payments into the product.
So Checkout acquired you in 2020, and Checkout tends to focus on the larger customers globally. And walk us through what was the attraction in terms of acquiring you and the synergies between both of you.
Sure. So funnily enough, we both sort of started our journey at the same time, just from very different ends of the market. So we started solving problems for, small businesses who needed to take payments quickly and easily, maybe without a technical resource in their team. Checkout was solving it from a really large merchant's perspective. So you think about, merchants that are processing lots of transactions, like a Netflix, so solving very different problems. And so, when we sort of started talking, they were very interested in what we were doing from a small business solution perspective. And then we were very interested in finding a partner that we could process on top of, because in our sort of, 8 years before we were acquired, we were processing on another sort of older style platform here in Australia, and it had its challenges. So Checkout, being sort of the same age as PIN Payments, it's a very modern platform, like really, really modern, and we've been able to innovate a lot using that. So that's sort of how we got together. Very like-minded, very much sort of a product and customer focused mantra at both businesses. So there was a lot in common between the two teams and products.
Okay, now I want to zoom in on your solutions for small business, Chris. Tell us about how you actually help small businesses manage their payments. What do you do?
So if you think about a small business, what they don't have a lot of is time. And I mentioned before, they don't usually have like a technical resource, or like in a larger company, like some companies have payment resources. In a small business, they've got no time, and they just need it to work, and they want it to be cost effective. So by building a solution where they can come to our website, sign up on the website, get activated within a single day, and start taking payments right away, it solves that problem for them, in that they've got customers who are demanding to pay with cards now, and they need a solution that they can, like, they're actually waiting to pay this business. So they need to find a solution so they can get paid by the customer, because more people want to pay with cards now. And that's becoming more and more common, and why small businesses need tools like PIN payments so they can be on an equal playing field to their larger competitors.
Now, you've been in, as you said, almost 10 years of operation. You serve over 12,000 businesses across Australia, and you're now in New Zealand as well. Could you give us a snapshot of the types of businesses and verticals that you serve?
Sure. So the real common ones would be online retail. So someone's selling their products online, and they might be using one of the well-known e-commerce platforms that allow you to set up an online store easily. Well, with an online store, you also need a payment provider, so you can actually take payment and receive the money from your customers. So online retail, very, very common. And then a lot of professional services as well. So people that are taking payment from the customers, building invoicing into their process as well. So no longer do you just have like a BSB and account number on invoices you issue. You can connect it to your invoicing solution and have online card payments. So you can get paid sooner, and you can automate the reconciling process for that as well. So they're the two really common sort of for a small business. And then for our software developer platform part of the business, that's where it's quite diverse. So we power payments for health tech platforms, for restaurant booking platforms, for payment automation platforms. It's a really like sports management platforms. To that other half of our business where it's other platforms integrating our technology. It's a really quite wide-ranging area of businesses that use us. Now,
I want to zoom in now on the Australian fintech space. Now, Australia is the 6th fastest growing fintech market according to the Global Fintech Index, and in Asia, it's number 2, Asia Pacific. Walk us through the rise of the fintech industry, because your company, PIN Payments, really was in the forefront of that growth.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to industry and providing them the means for these companies to launch and test out in the industry. So I know that there's, in terms of the needing an Australian financial services license for certain fintech areas. In the early days, they built out a sandbox, right, which I think is common in other markets like Singapore as well. And so by building a landscape that encourages people to innovate and sort of build new products and solutions, that really made it easier for people to get started and launch. And there's other things like startup startup camps and incubators that are very much focused around fintech as well. So because it is a very developed market for financial services in Australia, it lent itself well to be a good market to start innovating and building some of these fintech solutions to sort of compete with some of the incumbents.
Now, and zooming in on fintech itself, payments is a hot area, not only in Australia but globally. Give us a primer on the industry in Australia and where you see the fastest growth happening in your payments landscape. What are some key trends also that you see that we can expect moving forward?
Yeah, so I guess with payments, there's all these things that are sort of around the payment ecosystem now. So when you think of payments, you might think of like credit card payments, which is sort of one of the things that we do. But then there's all of the value added service around that. So let's think about, think about fraud, for example, right? As more people start to transact online, well, that attracts, people that are looking to take people for a ride and make money out of that. So a lot of the payment providers now, they're focusing on fraud solutions. So how do you protect your customers? It's not just about, taking money, but how do you protect your customers and educate them about some of those things around the payment landscape? In terms of payment methods, over the past 4 to 5 years, everyone would have been sort of aware, especially in, I guess, the Asian market around buy now, pay later. It grew a lot, and then it's sort of, it's a very interesting market of what's happening there now. But in Australia, for example, the real-time payments network just launched in the past few years, whereby people can transfer money in real time between bank accounts versus transferring money you'd have to wait for settlement the following business day. That's something that's been launched in the Australian market over the past few years, and it will become more and more common in a B2B sense in the next few years because of some of the developments in the market there. And that's one of the things that we're sort of very interested in as well.
Now, how is this going to impact the traditional incumbents, the big four banks in particular in Australia? How have they responded to this competitive landscape in Australia from the fintechs that are the attackers?
I think they've gone about it in a few different ways, and obviously they need to respond to this. So, one area is like the neobanks, right? You think about some of the startup banks. 4 years ago, there was like a whole number of startup banks that are really going hard at the incumbents. And if you look at it today, there's really only one or two that have really nailed it. Some have been acquired by some of the larger banks. And so that part there is they've gone through the acquisition piece to compete in that area. In the payment space, there's been a lot of partnership as well. So banks will partner with some of these technology providers and startups to try and keep a pace. And then some of them have sort of just sort of have done what they've done in the past, which is invest in trying to do it themselves. So some of the banks have payments investment arms, so they'll invest in startups and try and get access to the new technology and ideas through that pace. But so I think there's not one solution to sort of keep up. It's a number of different areas that they're investing in to try and remain relevant.
So Chris, then you're an Australian-based company. You're in Australia and New Zealand, obviously, and you're a market leader in your space. Asia is a huge market. Are there plans to go into Asia in the coming years?
So for the PIN payments business, right now we're focusing just on the Australian and New Zealand market. Our parent, though, checkout.com, they've been active in Asia for a number of years. So they do service larger merchants in the region and do a wonderful job of it. But for our business at the moment, we're just focusing on Australia and New Zealand.
Now, Chris, what can we expect from PIN payments from a solutions and innovation perspective in the near future?
Yes, I mean, we're very much focused on our customers and the problems that they have to solve. And so one of the areas that we're looking at, in the next sort of 12 months is how we can help our platform partners and our individual partners to grow their business. And one of the areas is around what I just mentioned before, around what's changing in terms of payment trends and payment habits. So more and more payments are coming online, but that doesn't just mean it's always going to be card payments. There's going to be other ways to pay. People are sort of used to paying with their bank accounts. I mentioned real-time payments as well. The FPOS network is going online as well. So there is a bit of a shift in the landscape in that it's not always just going to be the standard card payments online now. And we're sort of investing to ensure that both our individual small customers and our larger platform partners remain relevant as that sort of changes.
Now, Chris, it's been a fascinating conversation, but I've got to ask you this: as you've grown this PIN payment business to the size that it's in, it's also been acquired. What lessons would you give entrepreneurs who are growing their startups right now, especially during the funding winter? How did you get across the difficult times as you were growing your business? I think
the one thing that I would say is focus, right? first thing, you need to work out what your unique difference is and focus really hard on that. And so I've mentioned a few times in our discussion already, but for us, it's focus on our customers and what their problems are and trying to solve for that and invest in that. Try and sort of focus on, a few key things rather than a wide range of things. Because if you try and do everything for everyone, like with us, like we could, payments can be accepted by anyone, but you need to focus on what part of the market, are you best set up to serve and invest in that. Don't try and be something for everyone or everything for everyone. Focus on that. And that's what we did and what we continue to do today. And that's what got us to where we are. That's how we had the conversation with Checkout. And that was where I guess a lot of similarities were there. They're obsessed with their customers as well and helping their customers with their problems. So that's sort of why I come to work every day and what we do as a team each and every day.
Chris, it's been a fascinating conversation. I learned a lot about the market. Thank you so much for coming on the show. But before we leave, any final thoughts you'd like to leave the audience with?
Yeah, I guess, looking back on our space, when it comes to payments, a lot is changing in the market. And I'll just say, if you are taking online payments or if you're not, look out for someone that you can have a conversation with and have a chat with, because there's a lot changing. You want to have a partner for the future. It's not just about having a utility.
Now, thank you very much for coming on the show, Chris.
Thanks, Brian.
Now, we've been speaking to Chris Dahl, the CEO of PIN Payments out of Australia. I'm Brian Fernandez, and you've been watching and listening to Biztech's C-Suite Conversation Show. This interview will be on our website, www.biztechasia, as well as our social media platforms. It'll also be on our syndication partners, TV stations, radio stations, and websites. Thanks a lot for tuning in.